Hello everyone, my name is Majd Abueta. I am a singer and chanter in my church. I wanted to make this video because a lot of people have been asking me recently to, teach them about how to get started in chanting, or at least how to improve your chanting. So that's what this video is about. I'm posting on YouTube, just if anyone finds it, feel free to go through it. Hopefully it's a quick, it's kind of like an intro to chanting. Very basic stuff, and this is from a Western perspective, simply because I do not know Byzantine, and there's a bunch of videos on Byzantine chanting that you can find on YouTube for free. So this is my perspective as a person who grew up reading in Western notation and singing in Western notation, like also in school, and I used a lot of that to incorporate into my chanting. So hopefully you guys learned something out of this. Let's go ahead and move on. Okay, to begin, in chanting, we have two parts. We have the melody and the ison. The melody is what you typically think of when you hear a chanter and they're singing this beautiful hymn, and they're singing these beautiful words. That is what the melody is doing. They're moving along the moving line of the hymn, which basically means they're just singing different notes to convey a message. I would say that they are singing at a 100% power, or volume, if you will. So that means they are trying to sing to reach the back of the church, and they really want to enunciate their words and be present in the church. Versus the ison, very very important part for chanting is then usually another person who's singing a supporting role of the hymn, and this typically involves only one note, so that's why it's not a moving line, it's just one note. It can be also called a drone note, and it's a stabilizing note. I will say that this would be sung on 70% power because you don't want the ison to be overpowering the melody or even matching, because it's really supporting role. But again, it's very important because it centers the lead chanter on the melody, both musically and spiritually, because you don't want any distractions in the church while chanting. And if the ison is there really providing that structure, it will help ground the chanter in singing. Um, Typically, you sing the ison versus relative to the melody where you're singing actual words. The ison I would actually sing on oo, and this is because it's a beautiful vowel. It doesn't really conflict with any other vowels, so it doesn't distract from the melody at all. However, I have tried in the past doing like vowel integration, which basically means I would kind of sing the vowels of the word that the lead chanter was singing, um, which would be like ooh, e, I, and kind of slightly modulate my mouth, which I'll demonstrate later if you wanted to do that, but it's not really necessary. I think ooh is a very great vowel, neutral, stabilizing, etc. Next slide, let's see. Okay, so in general, I kind of already touched this for the East one, but for the melody, you're the lead chanter or person leading this melody that needs to be conveyed to all the people in the church. Um, so you really need to know what you're singing in terms of words and in terms of meaning, because that gives you a purpose when you're chanting. And you can anticipate like note changing and changes in the ison as well, because you should anticipate changes in the ison since you are doing the melody. You should be able to do all of that by knowing the words and knowing the notes, of course. Um, Also, in general, if you are ever chanting a newer hymn, or rather a hymn you've never really chanted before, or just something you haven't had the time to practice, always take a breath, think of the tone in your head, and then go for it. Just go confidently and slowly. The key is slow, because if you're going slow, you really have more time to think and process what you're singing, the meaning of the words, and what notes are coming next for your specific tone. So those are some general tips I have if you're singing melody. If you're singing ison, you should always listen to the lead chanter who's chanting melody, and anticipate what they're going to do. So I know that's not always easy, and sometimes you're singing with different chanters, or it's just a different, not familiar tone or hymn. So that's why you really want to listen, and the key is listening and adjusting as best as possible. Um, Also, when singing the ison, you really want to be steady in your volume. So try not to change, like going too high, too soft. If you're not confident, that's okay. You can back out, and if you find yourself, come back in, of course. But always be overall average, and on average, be steady. In terms of pitch, this is the very most important thing for ison because you are the ground for this hymn, for the chanter, for everything. So you really want to be in your A game in terms of pitch, hitting the note correctly on time, not scooping in or dying down, so not going flat or sharp, if you will. Very, very important, and that's why I suggest the oo volume vowel because it really I don't want to say it doesn't really waver in pitch, but it's hard to waver in pitch when you're singing one vowel, especially oo. And it is also on that note, you want to keep steady in breath and color. Color means vibrato, basically, or the texture of the note you're singing. So what you don't want to, please don't sing vibrato just because it is hard. When you're singing vibrato, you're singing multiple notes, right? You're going back and forth between two notes usually. And that will really confuse the lead chanter. It will also add unnecessary texture to the hymn that might be even distracting to everyone, yourself, the lead chanter, and everyone in the church. So avoiding vibrato is good because again, you are stabilizing the hymn. You are the backbone of this hymn. So you don't want to waver in those notes when you're singing ison. Ison is very important, I should mention again. All right, next. Okay, so going off the last slide, remember melody and ison. This slide is for the ison. So I already kind of mentioned this, but you really need to listen. Listen to the lead chanters, what they're saying, what tone, anticipate what's next. Second, learn the melody. Very, very important because if you know the melody, more than likely you can know the ison and anticipate when the ison will change. And the ison can change within a hymn. It can either go up, down, it can be unison with the melody, meaning that you sing with the exact same notes as them, which we will actually see in some of the examples later on today. All right, so let's get into the 8 tones. So I made this table of all of the tones, what emotion they convey, in my opinion, what the Western feel would be, so either major or minor. Major being happy, joyful, minor being more solemn, prayerful, peaceful, um, and then what the ison would be typically. Not always, but this is just a general overview. So for tone 1, for example, I think of a victorious tone. It's usually major. The ison will start on a D or an E. This is actually different than the melody. The melody can also start on D. Sometimes it also starts on G. So you have to just be aware of what you're singing if you're melody or ison, because tone 1 is sometimes different. I've also seen that the ison can drop down to C very briefly at the end of a phrase. And I think the melody singing G at that point. So, but it would drop down very briefly and then it goes back up to D, the bass line, D. Um, for for tone 2, I usually think of a more mysterious tone. It is a beautiful minor tone. The ison is very simple on G. Um, the melody and the ison both start on G as well. The melody does drop right away, but if you're the ison, just listen to the first note and start. Then for tone 3, it's a more of a majestic tone is what I kind of came up with. Very beautiful tone. This is actually special because it's a mix of major and minor, and this is where the ison is very, very important because the ison typically moves down before the melody moves down and makes the phrase minor. So like I said earlier, the ison is a stabilizing force or stabilizing note. And this will help guide the lead chanter go to that minor stage coming from a major. Typically for tone 3, you start on F and then right away the melody will go up to its A, so it'll be da 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 da, very beautiful, and then it will come down towards the middle of the phrase and it will drop down to the minor tones or minor feel, I guess, and at that point the ison should drop a minor third. So if I start on da, that's the F or relative, whatever, da 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 da, F major minor third. So that's what you have to drop down. Or if that's too hard for you, look ahead in what the notes are, or memorize the melody, I guess, and memorize how they scale down, because the melody will usually scale down in tone 3 until it gets to that minor point. And then you always go back to F, the major, at the end. For tone 4, another one of my favorites, it's more peaceful. It is minor. It's typically on a G. I think sometimes you can do it on an E and then go up to the G, but if that's typically we just stay on a G. Tone 5, I also wrote plagal of tone 1. So plagal just means it kind of derived from the tones. So you have tone 1 through 4 tones 5 through 8 are plagals of 1 through 4 respectively. So you might notice some similarities and you might actually be confused sometimes. Don't get confused. If you practice, you should be able to differentiate between the 8. So for tone 5 though, it's more sorrowful, it's minor. The ison can be C, I think it can also be A, but it usually stays the same. Tone 6, also very kind of serious. I would say also sorrowful at sometimes, especially during Lent. It's also minor. It will stay on one note, D, and typically it's very, and D is usually, I think, the last note. Yeah, the first and the last note of the melody as well. Tone 7, or pentful tone, I guess is what I came up with. It's a minor tone. It can be on B or A, and it will stay stay one or the other. It can also be, I think that's the typo. It's C and F, because it will switch between the two. So we'll jump up and down between the two. Tone 8, it can be minor or major. I think major is I would think like doxology. And it will switch between like C and F. So make sure you know those skips between, or if you're doing ison, make sure you're practicing those jumps, especially for tone 3, tone 7 and 8. All right, so let's look at some examples. We have tone 1. Okay, so first off, we have God is the Lord, tone 1, as chanted in Matins or Orthos. The ison is on a D, so that's a good start. It does not change for this hymn. However, the melody starts on a G, so it's actually different starting notes. So what I like to do, as someone singing the ison, you should know, make an effort to know the melody as well. So if you know that the end of the melody for this example ends on a D, you can anticipate the D from the beginning and sing right away. Or if you guys want to, take your time and pitch the ison separate, which is what I'm going to do for the sake of time today. So here's the melody. You can actually get your ison from here if you just drop down a fifth, because G to D is 5. So that's a D. But for the purpose of this, because the ison is on one note, I'm just going to sing the melody, just so we can get used to tone 1. God, I'll play the ison. God is the Lord, and hath appeared unto us. Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. So we saw there that the ison and the melody finished together. Very beautiful hymn. That is one of the tone 1s. Now we're going to look at the Triumpharian of the Resurrection. Okay, so now we have the Triumpharians, which you might be familiar with because it's a very common hymn that we sing in Divine Liturgy. And remember, our tones cycle throughout the year. So it's tone 1 week, tone 2 the next, tone 3, etc., up until tone 8. And then Pascha, we obviously do the Pascha specific tones, but I think we still do the Troparians as well, more commonly. For this one, so remember how I said tone 1 could be on a D or an E. This one, that tone is actually, tone 1 is on an E, and that's only simply because the key is just slightly different, which you don't have to worry about as long as you get the general idea, because nothing really in the church is keyed. It's all relative to whoever's chanting, and you guys might not even key everything or pitch everything. But if you do, obviously follow what's written. If you don't, that's fine too. In this case, again, the ison and the melody start on fifth note apart. So in this case, it's A and E. And I think the ison does change. Yep, the ison does change for this one. So I like this text because it has the little diamond that says where the ison will change. So if you can see, like at the beginning, it's on while, and it says ison very marked very clearly, and then where it changes is on life. It goes down to D. So, and you can always anticipate that change by knowing the melody, because the melody kind of goes down, right? It's granting life to the world. Yeah, and that's where we start to see the drop in the ison. So for this hymn, I'm going to sing melody while playing ison again. While the stone was sealed by the Jews, and the soldiers were guarding thy most pure body, now didst arise on the third day, O Savior, granting life to the world. So as you can see, the ison moved down very beautifully as the melody also moved down. And that's pretty much it, and that's very typical of tone 1 in this case. Remember how I said tone 1 can also do D to C, so it's the same thing if you were in the other key. And then it'll be D to C, and then back up. But you always end together for tone 1. All right. Tone 2. Here's tone 2, and God is the Lord. The ison is on a G and does not move. This is chanted in matins as well. Now this is kind of difficult because the ison and melody start differently for this hymn. So whoever's pitching it hopefully gives you a pitch, or you can try to figure it out. Actually, if you know the melody, that's your E. Oh, I was off. This is why. Oh, the ison's G. My bad. God is the Lord. We actually don't do what's written on what this is. This is how I sing this hymn. God is the Lord who has shown us light. Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. God is the Lord who has shown us light. Okay, here's another tone 2. This one actually moves down, so it moves from a G to an F. So I'm gonna again sing the melody and play the ison, and try to anticipate the change. So listen to the melody, figure out when it's gonna change. I think for this one, it's when we actually move up. So listen to that. And you start on the same note as melody. When thou didst submit thyself unto death, O thou deathless and immortal one, then thou didst destroy hell with thy godly power. So see how the ison moved down to make that beautiful chord, and then I moved back up to be unison on the G. G is your rock in tone 2, or your bass line, or your home note, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call it. G is where you need to be if you're ever in doubt. But for this specific hymn, it does move down to the F. Always just keep your notes in mind. Tone 3. Okay, tone 3. For this, God is the Lord, it is sung, the ison is sung on an F, which is actually different from the starting note. The starting note is an A. So hopefully you can pitch it correctly. God is the Lord, and hath appeared unto us. Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Did not sing that all the way correct, but you get the gist. Now we have the part of the resurrection. This one changes a lot. Because remember I said tone 3 can be major and minor. So this is where we're going to anticipate those changes. So I'm going to sing the melody. The isons are clearly marked. Try to follow along. Let the heavens rejoice and the earth be glad. For the Lord hath done a mighty act with his own arm. He hath trampled down death by death, and become the firstborn from the dead. He hath delivered us from the depths of Hades, granting the world the great mercy. Beautiful hymn, but the ison does change a lot. But again, the melody kind of signals to you, hey, I'm about to go down. Can you change it to minor? Hey, I'm about to go back up. Can you come back up to the F? In this case, I would still say the F is your bass or your home note, because that is what you are kind of going to be drawn to, F and D. And then you have those little instances where you're up to the G and you're down to the C. The C is easier because you anticipate the melody going down to that. If you know the melody of this hymn, you should know that, oh, they're about to go all the way down this time. And usually that's towards the end of the hymn, which in this case it was. He had delivered us from the depths of Hades, granting the way. So we know it went all the way down to the C. A very beautiful hymn. Tone 4. Tone 4, God is the Lord. We start on a G, and we stay there. But the melody is on A flat. I would just start with the melody and stick on the G for the second note. So, God is the Lord and hath appeared unto. I don't know this, to be honest, so I'm going to skip it. Part of the resurrection, tone 4. So the ison is on a G. The melody in this case starts on an E. So you actually have to, you can either just start with the melody and then stay with the G on learned, or you can get it from the beginning, but someone's probably not going to pitch it. So this is the E. Having learned the joyful message of the resurrection from the angel, the women disciples of the Lord cast from them their parental condemnation, and promptly broke the news to the disciples, saying that had been spoiled. Christ God is risen, granting the world great mercy. So we stayed in the G for the entirety of this hymn. Oh, I forgot to mention this. If you're unsure of the ison and you know that the G is going to be singing at a specific spot, kind of quiet down and listen to the melody, listen to where they are and hone in on that note, and then that can reground yourself and reground your home note. So that's why I was playing the G on Lord, for example, because I knew the melody was singing Lord, so that's my note that I need to be singing at that time. Also, if you know music theory, we're making a third when the melody goes up to the B, Raleigh broke the news to that beautiful major chord for a second. That should be another like checkpoint, I should say. Another way for you to check yourself that you are in the right note for the ison. Also love this hymn. Tone 5. Let's get that. Tone 5, so we have the Tuparian. For this, we kind of teeter between G and A. So down, up, down, up, down. So I'll just play it and we start in the same note as melody. Let us believers praise and worship the Word co-eternal with the Father and the Spirit, born of the Virgin for salvation. For he took pleasure in ascending the cross in the flesh, to suffer death and to raise the dead by his resurrection. Sorry, I don't remember the ending. But see how the ison actually changed the hymn from major to minor. Very, very important ison in this case, because it's really stabilizing the feel of this Troparion and how we sing it and convey it to the church, the people in the church. This is a very good practice if you want to really hone in on your ison for tone 5. Very hard melody too. Tone 6. This. So we have the Troparion in this case. It starts on a G, and I think it just stays on the G the whole time. So with the melody. When Mary stood at thy grave looking for thy sacred body, angelic power shone above thy revealed tomb. And the soldiers who were to keep guard, I guess the ison did move down. I didn't really see that. But it does move down, in this case, to the C. If you kind of forget, that's totally fine. Just catch it for next time. Tone 7. This tone 7 and the tone 8 for the Troparion of the Resurrections, they both kind of do the same thing. They switch between the F and the C. So memorize that jump. Do 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 do. Luckily we start on the same note with melody. Thou didst shatter death by thy cross, thou didst open paradise to the thief, thou didst turn the sadness of the ointment-bearing women into joy, and didst bid thine apostles proclaim morning that thou might. I don't know the rest. Let's see how the ison jumps between the C and the F. So that's 5 notes, right? Or 4 notes, I mean. Then here comes the bride. If you can never remember the jump, it's here comes the bride, all dressed in white. So that's a 4th. All right, almost done. Okay. Same thing for tone A. It's the same exact jumps. We can start right away. From the heights thou didst descend, O compassionate one, and thou didst submit to the 3-day burial, that thou might deliver us from passion. Thou art our life and our resurrection, O Lord, glory to thee. So it's the same thing. Beautiful. I was getting confused because actually it sounds like I want to go to the D for the ison, and I think in the past I've done that before. So that's why I was kind of hesitating. All right. Thank you. Okay, so I kind of made up a song for all the tones, and it tells you how the tone is going to be sung. So, for example, I'll just start off, honestly. It's easier to sing it than describe. So, this is for melody. Tone 1 always starts down, he then goes, jumps up, and it stays up until it goes down. Then it goes up, and it keeps going up sometimes, but it always ends down. Cool? Okay. Then this is tone 2. Tone 2 starts like this. It loves to go up and go down. Sometimes it goes up even higher, but it always ends up down. Tone 3. Tone 3 loves to go up, then go down. Then it goes back up and goes up again and goes up, but it goes back down. Then it goes up for the last time, going up and ending here. Tone 4. Tone 4 always starts like this, but it goes down. It goes back up again, and sometimes it goes up even higher, but it always goes down. Not as good in that one. Tone 5. I don't know if I could do tone 5. Tone 5 can either be like tone, I guess this is different. I'm not sure I can't do this with tone 5, so I'm gonna skip tone 5. But with tone 5, you can think of two things. You can think of the tomorrow and the resurrection. Let us believers praise and worship the Lord. Do 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 do. Or you can think of blessed art thou, O Lord, teach me thy statutes. Very early in the morning did the myrrh-bearing women run lamenting unto thy tomb. So it's kind of like a majestic feel. I think I described it before. Or is that tone 3? I can't remember anymore. But it's almost like it flutters. So do do do. Tone 6. Let me think. No. So tone 6 starts up here, then goes down. It goes right back up, and the phrase always goes back down. That's pretty much all of tone 6, honestly. Tone 7, don't really know that one. Like a thing to say it. Here's just the Japan. Thou didst shatter death by thy cross. Thou didst open paradise to the thief. That is totally wrong. Thou didst shatter death by thy cross. Thou didst open paradise to the thief. It's major. Thou didst turn the sadness of the ointment-bearing women into joy. Alright. Tone 8 is similar for the Champaran. From the heights thou didst descend, O compassionate one. You can also think of the doxology. Glory to thee who has shown us the light. Glory be to God and on earth, peace, goodwill among men. Tone 8 loves that lower note. That's your bass note or your home note for tone A. Man. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. So tone 8 likes to flutter out. When it does all this fluttering, but it always comes back down. So hopefully that kind of makes you think more of the tones. Um, if you ever get lost, I like to use the Tramparans a lot, the Tramparans of the Resurrection, a lot in terms of centering myself for the tones. However, just be aware that different melodies can sound different in different tones, or in the same tone, I should say. All right, and that's the end. Thank you guys.